Yeah. So we can include some of that information as we send it up to the state. I think eventually we'll get all three buildings down.
Good afternoon and welcome. This is the Bay Oaks Recreational Campus Stakeholder Meeting. It is Monday, July 13th, 2020 at 2 p.m. and we are in the council chambers. Would you all please rise for our pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, for the benefit of our transcriber, I'm going to ask all of our Bay Oaks committee members to please give their names. And we'll start over there with you, Karen.
Karen Woodson.
Becky Bodner.
Betty Simpson.
Barbara Hill.
Jana Holmes.
Lee Melsick.
Okay, thank you. And I see that we have our liaison member here, Dan Allers, and it looks like he's sporting a little problem on his arm.
This is just a club to keep everybody in line.
Don't be hitting anybody, Dan.
No, don't worry about it.
Thank you for being here, and thank you, everybody, for your presence here today. This is a real important meeting, and we have been anticipating this for some time, and we're thrilled to see so many of you here today. That brings us to item 3 on our public comment, and do we have public that wants to speak at this time? Okay, that's fine. We'll close public comment. You'll get an opportunity if you've got questions under the item C when we talk about input from our stakeholders. So thank you. We do not have our minutes available for our last meeting. So we'll pass that right on by, and I'll go to item 5, the Bay Oaks Redevelopment Project. And at this time, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to you a man that doesn't need any introduction, Paul Benfey. He is our project manager for DRMP. So,
Thank you, Betty. I appreciate it. My name is Paul Benvey. I'm the project manager for this project with DRMP. I brought a couple of my sub-consultants with me, and I'd like them to introduce themselves.
I'm Ryan Richards with RG Architects.
Working with Insight.
And then we already met BORCAB. Does the town staff want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Chelsea O'Reilly. I'm the Public Works Director, working in tandem with Allison Geeson project.
Guys. So just so everyone can get an idea of all the stakeholders that are present here, I'd appreciate it if everybody can introduce themselves and where they're coming from and what they're here to see. With you, Kathy.
Kathy Ebaugh, Executive Director, Facility Planning and Development, Lee County School District. And we're here to talk about the district's participation in the project.
Jesse Lavender with Lee County Parks and Recreation.
May, Lee County Parks and Recreation, planner.
Dan Allers, Fort Myers Beach Town Council.
Denise Monahan, Friends of Bay Oaks.
Patrick Van Ast with Little League, also a land use planner.
Okay. Anybody else over here?
I didn't recognize you. How are you?
Charlie Whitehead. I guess I got a whole bunch of hats. I was here at the opening ceremonies for Bay Oaks, and I've been involved in Little League ever since. We're raised at Bay Oaks, and else's kids here just to hear what you guys are up to.
Sure. Appreciate that.
I know some of you. I didn't recognize you with masks on.
So one housekeeping thing before he continues is mics are wireless. Before you speak, just make sure it turns green, that way we can capture, and for the
All right, so I want to give you a brief history of where we're at for this project. A few months ago, it's been actually late last year, we were asked to take a look at the property that the town had recently acquired, located right here on Estero Boulevard. And we looked at making a vehicular entrance and for a welcome center. Lots of different ideas came up. And so I want to kind of show you a little bit the history that we went through. This out. So here's some photos of that area from the street. There's an aerial view here of what it might look like, and then here's a sketch. I want to show this nice sketch. About a minute. As this is being sketched out, again, this was a first step in the direction of looking at the Bay Oaks campus as a whole. The council and I think through BORCAB's input to council, it was recommended that we start looking at the whole campus. So this is now one small portion of the project. And this is a sketch that we prepared impromptu. This was an idea that the site might look like. Matt graciously prepared this over a weekend and thought about a lot of different things. It has not been vetted out completely, and that's why we're here today, to really get some feedback from the public to find out if this is the direction that we want to go. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at this and digest it. I don't want to go into all the details of what we see here. This was what we went to council. This is what pushed us to get the next step of this process, which is to get to 30% plan. So this was a sketch, a pretty picture. We're trying to get to the 30% plan stage and try and hash out some of the details and almost do a minor master plan. This is the same sketch, just shown with different options for different phasing for construction. Also, the parcels are labeled in different colors, so you can have this in front of you if you want to take a look at it. But for all intents and purposes, the major portions are this area out here is all owned by the town. This are owned by the blue at the very top. That's okay. So that's owned by Lee County. And so through conversations with BORCAB and other parties, we did speak with Little League, and the necessity for having two ball fields was brought up right now. Again, this is a little bit different than what we were doing originally. The main point is that this ball field is added. Center is being to high level. We talked a little bit about that and looking at the budget for what we're trying to do there. If we go with an artificial turf, that's about $1 million probably in expense. So just kind of keep that in mind. We're looking at the limits of the budget here, and that here again is the same overlay with the parcels and the with the second plan. So that's where we're at. So you can see that we've got a lot of work to do. We're here to work with y'all and understand what's needed. What are we looking for? What can we do to help? What can we do to answer any questions that you might see here? Is there something that we're missing? Is there something that we don't need? Are we spending money in a good way? Are we getting the biggest bang for our buck? That's kind of where we're at. So a little more about this right here. Let's select it. Real quick, so the size of this parcel or series of parcels is about 16 acres. And we've got a budget of about $5.5 million to work with. And we have a lot of programming that we're trying to stuff into this very, very important project site. Again, so our goals today is, number one, we're trying to get community feedback, trying to understand what we're looking for, what the town wants, what the stakeholders need. Forward to hear. And just try to get some feedback again, as we said. But the end goal of this is to really enhance the community's park system, and then by redeveloping this park.
So I'm going to dive into that as well. Mind you, a lot of this, school board owns a large piece of this puzzle. And we have had communications with the school board and their needs and wants, and of course all of their programming that they have to do as a school and provide resources, recess, wants and needs of the school itself. We are working with them on a potential interlocal, long-term interlocal. Are here to kind of bring to the table their wants and needs, but that plays a huge role.
We need to show this picture. So that's one of the main issues that we do have to work through, but also we have some other issues. So this building here is the I understand we're constantly chasing conditioning units brought in. There's a new roof that needs to be put in probably in the next 5 years. There's lots of, and it's a 30-year-old building, maybe really extended its just that building and has an ability to demolish it and put it in a new open air facility like we see at Waxahachie, something like that. And so that's one key. And we got to think about, again, the budget. We're working on a $5.5 million budget. Else? So real quick, just the schedule that we're working with. Earlier, we're working on 30% plans right now. So what that means is 100% plans as your biddable documents you're going. We're only working in the first 30% of that. We are going to be presenting on council towards the end of September, beginning of October, the 30% plan. But there we're trying to get to biddable documents on so we can following Little League and also following so that's about where we're at. That's the rundown that I've got for you. And all stakeholders, I suppose we could go around in fashion or just have.
Right.
Sure. Okay, go for it.
Really excited with all the progress that's being made. One thing I was wondering if you could, I think a good starting point, what I like to hear more detail on, is the entrances and how will the public access this. That's a really important place to start.
Okay.
As I started Friends of Bay Oaks, one of the things we heard overwhelmingly, and I know the council advisory board will attest to this, people don't know we're here. And so the sketch that you showed, that looks like it's just a pedestrian-only access. Mm-hmm. So I'd really like to hear more about how people are going to find us, how will they access the property. It looks like there's 2 gates that will allow them access. If you could just a little bit.
Sure. So the sketch that was done, again, that was done in about December. Then when we did that, we heard necessarily that there isn't really a great entrance into the park. When I come in to do my site walks and things like that, I where the park is, and I still think it's kind of awkward. So what we're showing here, we had options. We could do pedestrian access, we could do vehicular entry, or we could do a vehicle. What we showed just here is that we've got an entry only through here. We had an elevated first floor welcoming center where the pedestrians would then be forced underneath there to be protected from the elements as they walk into the camp. So that was the first step that we did. We also utilizing the existing entrance over here off of School and Oak, and then we had a secondary new access put over here there now that's just blocked off with removable bolts. So that's your vehicular access that we have. Dive a little bit more into the budget. We're talking about $5.5 million. This is a lot of programming for $5.5 million. What I heard from BORCAB was that if we had to start cutting back some of the programming that we've talked about, it may make sense to put this on hold for the moment, not build that. Then this would become just a vehicular access, whether it's in or out. I'd love to hear from you guys. I think that an in traffic through on Gulf Beach, I'd open that back to everyone and feelings and
I think it's important. That's the key piece to that entire place. I think cutting that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because the whole purpose of this was for ability, for an entrance. So, to me, that would make sense to be the least thing cut.
Okay.
Because, again, the whole point is to make it known that it's there. Whether it's
so there is definitely a presence from the street that building serves to invite people in.
absolutely, it should be some sort of welcoming center somehow.
But I don't want to monopolize.
Identify yourself if you could
Oh,
necessarily
thank
see.
you. Denise Monahan, I agree, but does it have to be a building? What was the thought on a building versus just really great signage?
So this is a really simple design. It's growing and morphing every day. Again, in December we did a simple welcome center building, and this was the limits of our project. So our first stab at this was to incorporate that as part of the design. Create a welcome center or a welcoming access point with placards and signs. It's two schools of thought. Do you want to have presence out on the street here where you can see a building and invite people into the building? Or do you want to have more of a grand entrance to allow vehicles to come in? That's something that, sounds like we're working through some of that dialogue now. Hear more. The building itself is going to be $1 million. Throwing around money. So at $5.5 million to work with, that's a very not getting picked up. Sorry.
Patrick,
Yeah, I like the entrance, I like the design. We're looking at costs and potential. The signage is a very good point. We have to keep in mind also is we have other city properties, town properties adjacent. At the library, you've got City Hall. And you've got access, and you can almost create a campus design if you wanted with unified signage. From any of those points, you could direct people to the park. Mm-hmm. So the building, great if we had the budget, but if the budget's tight, also look at signage from other properties.
And to that point, that building could be planned, but not built until there's a need or funding to build it with. So it's something that's a little bit more flexible.
With the, I have to have some going both ways, and if I like to plan the building for later, and that building for later, put it in the design phase, get the rest of the park done with really great signage, accessibility from Estero and have that in Part B.
You mentioned $1 million to $1.2 million AstroTurf cost.
So, well, we can talk about that on this sketch here. So we did a little bit of budget analysis on this. This large field is about $1.2 million for just the turf. Smaller field here is about $800,000 for just the turf. Then you also have to factor in your demoing a building, and then you're reconstructing this, and then you're also reconstructing bleachers. So, I was assuming that this might cost somewhere in the range of $1 million. The second field.
Talking about the entire field or the outfield or
That is for the entire as drawn.
all of the turf on both fields?
So this field here, just the turf, 1.2 million. Just the turf on this field, 800,000.
So we're talking about $2 million if we're looking at
Both
both
of them,
fields.
for 2 fields, yes. And that's just the turf. If we
Yeah, I
built it
understand. There's the field construction cost itself, I know.
This thing called grass seed.
It was 1987 when the grand opening, so 3 years. Another thing, you can't pick me up.
Charlie, over here, Charlie.
Hey,
Yeah, you can sit with Patrick.
There you go.
Sorry, Charlie.
oh, you're funny. Yeah, you've mentioned programming a couple of times. You're talking about providing programming space, right?
Yes,
Because programming is a different budget, that's the operational budget.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I just want to make sure we know what we were talking about
Yeah,
there.
so we talked about programming what's going into these 2 buildings, which really so far, we haven't even talked about today. These 2 buildings are here, and then we have this third one. We talked about what, ORCAB basically came to a consensus on what they believe should go into each one of those.
The uses, the providing the
usage.
space for the uses.
Yes, yeah.
From a budgetary standpoint, when you guys are saying $5.5 million, are we talking about phase? Are we talking about the entire
The
project?
entire project.
And I don't know the details of how much the library costs. I do recall funding for $8.5 million. That sound accurate to the rest of the group? If I'm looking at the size of the library and all these new buildings we're adding, it seems a little light of 5.5 with the turf and everything else.
I agree.
And I'm just saying, you know, if we want a quality facility, quality park, if the budget's gonna be more, and we know that, I think it's better to have that discussion up front of we might have to build it in phases, rather than putting out a number that might be a little too light, don't wind up getting what we want.
Yeah, so that budget number comes from the town working with financiers to get a loan to pay for this, and some other projects that are going on at the same time. And of the portion of that loan that's been dedicated and split off to this project is $5.5 million. I agree with you that this is more expensive than $5.5 million.
Add from all of the different stakeholders, that number goes up. And I know BoardCap has heard this before, but you keep adding, you take something away. You keep adding, you take something away. So that's really the point of this meeting, is to hear the input from all of the stakeholders in this room. The school board, we've got Friends of Bay Oaks, we've got the Garden Club, we've got the Chamber, we've got Bay Oaks, we've got the community in general, we've got the town, we've got Lee County. That's a lot of hands in this. We are trying to get your input, what the needs and wants of this community are, and see how we can make it fit within this puzzle and within the budget, because ultimately, there are a lot of hoops and loops that have to be jumped through prior to the shovel even hitting the ground. Council has to get through design, council has to approve of the loan, we have to work through our agreement with the school board, with and interlocal with the county potentially. There's a lot of hoops and loops, but this is the point to get your thoughts and ideas and comments, albeit negative or positive, on the table. What we're here for is what we want to hear. So I know it's just after lunch and everybody just had lunch, but I'd love to hear more discussions.
Thank you.
I'm not shy. The county's here. Has there been any discussion regarding county funding of the project and or ongoing programming funding?
No.
Short answer.
Yep.
There be a discussion.
Above my pay grade.
Yes, there could be.
You know what that means?
Yes, there could be. County interacts with the recreation center at Sanibel, with this county and the school board. In fact, there's some shared, well, county and school board pay for some of the electric. The county, I believe, pays for the lights at the ball field. So yes, to answer your question, there should be and can be discussion with the county about doing for us what they do.
Numerous examples of other municipalities with county parks. Bradenton Beach has county parks. Venice.
Sometimes I ask stuff I already know.
Just talking about asking legal for assistance and funding.
I don't want to leave the school board off the hook. I mean, has there been such a discussion at the school board level?
So the school board is providing land that is significant value to the district. We were put it, if it was to be there. So in terms of a financial contribution, it is not our intention to provide a financial contribution, but we will make a donation in land.
That would be regarding the project cost and the ongoing cost?
So the ongoing costs are something that we talked about at the playground level. That's the only area. So we don't have a lot of costs in this project from our own perspective. The playground is on a rotational budget, on a rotational basis, which is about a 7 to 10 year rotation. That's someplace that we could look at. But other than that, value that we're providing to this project is that we aren't going to charge for the land.
Well, isn't it so that the school district pays Sanibel Recreation Center for its school children?
I'm not as familiar with that particular agreement. We have agreements with all of our local jurisdictions on shared use facilities. And our contribution is usually in the land and then some of the maintenance. But again, the maintenance that we have on this property would be with the playground. So we would, there's certainly some discussion that we could have about the playground area. But we don't, an elementary school does not require by state standard, nor do we have it in our own standards, what we would, the extensive field space and other provisions that are in this project. So if we were to look at this, we would have to make it analogous to the other projects that we have in a typical elementary school, which again is the playground space.
But I got you talking, Kathy. Do you or Ms. Manzi discuss kind of some of the items that we've been discussing?
Sure. So first, we would look to, we met your team earlier today, and Karen, please chime in. But we met earlier today to talk about some of our concerns regarding this property, our needs regarding this property, and our biggest one is we need to make sure that we are meeting state standards and state legislation. It's hard to talk with one of these on, but no, I'm not taking it off. So there's some legislation that we have to meet. Jessica Lungsford is the first legislation we have to meet. We also have to meet state standards for, that came about because of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas for safety and security of our kids. And so there's a couple of things that we have asked for. One is that the parking lot that is currently shown, we're willing to make it as a shared use parking. We understand the need for parking after hours, but we would like to have that secured for our purposes and for the faculty's purposes during the school day. Then we can work with electronic gates to make it available to the public during hours that we are not needing them. We'd also need to secure it for activities that happen on our campus. So that's the first thing, and in doing so, we'd like to look at having the town vacate. Currently, that's our parking lot is in a right-of-way. We'd like to look at the town vacating our parking lot so that we can secure that property, secure that property in perpetuity, make it part of our property. But as I said, we're willing to, through electronic gates, allow it for shared use when it's not in need by our facilities. The next thing we need to do is we need to create, a Jessica Lunsford Act requires that the campus is secured and has a secured perimeter, single point of entry. Ryan, you know all of this. So we would be looking for a zone to be identified that would identify, even though the land would be transferred to the town, we need to make sure that there's an overlay zone that during school hours is the secure zone for our students, that the public wouldn't be able to access during the day or when the schools are in session. That's legislative, and we just need to make sure that the provisions in current statute require for a single point of entry on campuses, all visitors must enter through the front door and be and have a background check done through your driver's license. So we would look for that to happen. And then allow for the use of the facility, the area that's the shared use component of it, again, through electronic gates and other ways to secure the property so that there's kind of a gray area that's not noted here on the property, but what we're talking about is mostly the playground and any of the facilities that are for the kids adjacent to the playground area. The other thing that we would like to do as part of this project, there is currently a bicentennial mural on the front of our campus. It's a fairly old mural, and we would like to propose that as part of us being a part of this project and kind of building on what is happening at the town, creating some sort of new mural that builds onto the tradition of the past, so has some sort of, maybe flag or some sort of a theme built into it, but also recognizes the new colors of the town. We had talked about some different theming of the playground, maybe connecting the theming of the playground to the mural. So if it was a pirate theme playground, there'd be some sort of pirate theme mural developed. If it was a seashell, the other one we talked about was kind of a sea-based theme for the playground, and doing something at the front of the mural that would be that. We recognize the community has a ownership and a stake in that mural, but it's getting harder and harder for us to maintain it. It has a west-facing visibility with no shade, so the colors are really hard to maintain for us. So if at all, we would like the community to support a new mural being put in its place. And then, we're excited about this project. We are willing to make the donation of the land to the town, so long as we understand that in exchange for that, we develop a partnership for the facility use. And then, like I said, the playgrounds, we can certainly discuss assistance with the maintenance of the playground. But if we were if we were to the value on this piece of land, it would be a fairly significant piece. And so that our financial contribution would be in land.
I think a lot of the discussions that we've had internally amongst ourselves is a lot of this will have to do with programming and operational programming, working with Allison and her staff and Sarah, coordinating schedules and that you all host, the town hosts. But I think for the most part, we get a lot of the requests per se. We might just need to better define this as we progress with this design, but this morning and cut out, I'll tell you that much. Definitely needs some shade under there. So.
What is the significant value of the school board land?
You know what, that would have to be done by an appraiser, and I wouldn't begin to venture, I guess.
Anybody want to guess?
I'm not an appraiser.
Answer.
So I guess ultimately we're looking for overall consensus, thoughts, comments on this. Understanding this is the plan that council saw. I've had input from Board Cab and from Little League regarding the concern of not having a second field. Is there any general comments?
Dan Allers, what is the cost roughly, Paul, would you estimate to take that building down versus repurposing it?
That's a very good question. So traditionally, when you build a building from scratch, your structural engineer is gonna apply loads on an enclosed envelope. So when you take away the enclosed portion, you take away those walls, it now becomes an open air structure. The wind loads that hit it are drastically different. So for us to actually analyze what that's going to be, what the differential would be, we actually have to have a structural engineer take a look at this building, we look at the original plans, recalculate that to make sure that it would work as an open air facility. For sure, that would be cheaper. I would imagine it would be cheaper than demoing it completely and putting up a new building. That number is, I couldn't tell you. It's part of my 30%. You'll hear about that at the end of September.
Sure I will. This is the first time seeing the revised plan, but batting cage on there?
Yeah, so again, this is the first rendition, and based on feedback, we heard we wanted batting cages, and they are shown area right here. I don't know. That feedback is tough. More than two, we can use them in there. We're going to be looking at this whole thing. I mean, you can see these two baseball fields, this one versus this one, facing in different directions. There's room to move things around, but as Chelsea said, if we add something, we take something away.
We'll see from this one to the second one, cost the gymnasium. So that's really, again, we're looking for input, programming, multi-purpose, budget. I can't size budget enough. But budget was tight with this one. At that second ball field, and we're over budget now, and not even at 30%. So it's figuring out what goes here and what the community should be at.
Can I just ask the question? I mean, is the second ball field, everyone's opinion, worth the difference of that much land? Talking probably 1.5 to 2 acres of the 16 acres, and you're talking about $1 million of a $5.5 million budget. So is that something that we should continue looking at as a second ball field, or should we focus more on repurposing that existing pavilion, or demolishing the pavilion and then adding an?
that right now? That's the folks who
From our standpoint, it's important. Little League, have many instances where we have younger kids practice at the fields. Also have adult softball. And if you're gonna have different age groups playing at different times, both. Otherwise, you're looking at, it's challenging. Another question I had with the new buildings around the pool, tear down the existing building, replace everything. I'm just not familiar with all the programming that's been.
Okay, so that's a very good question. So, BORCAB and I spent a lot of time talking about this, assuming that everything that's at the existing center is gone. We have to put it all back in that programming into these buildings, and then we added some additional.
Mind you, council has not formally seen this rendition at a council meeting.
And the,
Can't emphasize that enough.
yeah, and the meeting minutes from that are not yet available. But what we were looking at here was this building, correct me if I'm wrong, but we kind of had consensus that this would be more of the athletic building.
Yes.
This one here is more of a community center building, so you have gathering spaces, you have a stage, you have your quiet activities in this building here. And then this building here, we were working with some different ideas, but I don't think we really had a great finish. So that's where I was saying earlier, like, one of these buildings need to be built for budget reasons. That's kind of what we're looking at here. This area here is where the existing pool, locker rooms, and offices are. And as a part of this program, we'd be looking to demolish that and start over again. That's been built for some time, likely exceeded its useful. And since we're putting in this really nice community center building, it may make sense to try and make these two buildings coordinate with each other. That way you're not having kids from a pool and sweaty racquetball players coming through the community center where playing. That was the idea there. Any other specific questions? That's just kind of like a 30,000 level fee.
Yeah, why are we talking about AstroTurf for the fields? Just because of the, why?
That's a good question. So just to present options,
Okay.
we can do traditional sod and turf grass, or we could look at doing it. It's not an AstroTurf; it's more of it's called a field turf. Now, AstroTurf is hard and a break on. So there's a couple of schools around town. Bishop Verot comes to mind that has this field turf installed, and it's better for injuries. It's better for play. It's more consistent. So there's lots of benefits that way. I understand the maintenance is.
The district is looking at potentially moving in the future, cost of maintenance. So it definitely is more of a heft up front, but.
And I think another thing too is you're using recycled materials to build this rather than trying to use fertilizer, which is going to run off into our. There's some good things.
Paul, do you
Yes.
want to talk a little bit about how these fields will just not be used just for the ball courts, but obviously to have this as a multi-purpose space for concerts, maybe talk a little bit about the amphitheater that we're proposing, and how that can also make a decision or help form the decision for whether it should be AstroTurf or not. I think the multi-purpose use of that is an important consideration.
So that's a good point. So if you have natural turf and you have natural clay infield, when you have people walking around on that field, it's going to take more intensive repair of that field to get ready for a game. If it's this artificial turf, there is no maintenance on it. It doesn't. And just so you know, the whole field, AstroTurf, artificial turf. Not be some clay areas or anything like that. Turf,
So we are talking about, there would be no dirt infields then?
no dirt. It sounded weird to me too.
Well, yeah.
There's actual videos. You can go online and look at one of the manufacturers of this that have this turf installed, and they actually do analyses on infielding. So when the ball comes off the bat, it comes more true through this type of turf.
Quicker.
It's not. It's the same. They've actually gone back and forth and getting different compounds and depths of compound to try and mimic exactly the turf. What you do get though is that those weird hops, those are kind of eliminated. So now the ball comes off the bat and comes to the fielder in a true position, a true ball flight. If it was to hit hot in the.
But, you know, just for example, softball is played on a skin infield,
Yep.
on a dirt infield. We would not, in fact, have a dirt infield.
It would not.
Okay.
Both would play the same. That would be something that we'd have to. That would be
No,
different.
I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah. And yeah, you can color the turf. So another thing too of that is sliding. I played ball growing up, and I like to slide on the clay. Apparently I've never done it, but apparently this is as easy to slide on. It's rubber, so it seems funky, but it.
On the subject of sports, I did want to add that these fields are not only used for softball and baseball, but also for soccer and flag football.
Sure.
And just, I'm surprised to hear you say that the injuries are less, because I had always heard quite the opposite in contact sports like flag football and soccer.
On turf. Okay,
Turf.
so
The injuries are different. There's rashes and it's off gases and things. I have always been led to believe we're not as good,
okay.
as healthy.
It's changed.
Yeah, so the AstroTurf of the 70s, that was basically, you're talking about a half an inch maybe of plastic, artificial razor blade grass that you slide on. You'd get nasty strawberries, and it was horrible. And if you fell or slid on it, you're talking about right onto concrete. This now has 6 inches of crushed rubber that's embedded into these fibers, and you have like a natural grass look to them. And I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you that a lot of professional organizations and colleges have put this in. And we're seeing a reduction from, again, this is from the manufacturer's website. I'm reading what they have to say, and they're saying they're seeing a reduction in so I don't know, there probably is, you're dealing with crushed rubber, so that's not a natural thing, but on the other hand, you also are putting chemicals onto grass turf and pests and weeds and all that. So there's definitely, it's not perfect, but it's a trade-off.
And I'm not saying I come down, but I think these are important conversations. Having a daughter who has played soccer on those fields at Varro, not want to do. Not pleasant. Since they do play flag football, I would not want to see those sports go away or lose interest. But I understand it's all trade-offs.
Yeah.
But I think walk through.
Yeah, and we're trying to do a lot in the. So, as you can see on this drawing and the other drawings, we have the smaller fields. These smaller fields in this area are sized for U6, U8 flag football and soccer, and then this one here is U10 flag football and soccer. And we can figure those if we have more popular at the U10 range, then we could put 2 of those instead of 2 of the small. I just thrown out there to say. To answer Barbara's question, this is a multi-purpose field. Different things going on it. Area here, you can see a band shell. Oh my gosh. This is a band shell that's underneath that forms a covering for the spectator. So if you're watching a baseball game, this is just like your standard quality. It also has acoustics built in so that when we have musicians or other concerts come in, have a convertible thing that we can do, where we can either have the cage built into the band shell so that when the sound is resonating, it fires out into the crowd who may be standing or seating out in the field. And you can also do the reverse, where if you have a maybe smaller concert, you put in a temporary stage in this area and have all your spectators sitting in the stage. They'll be able to receive that sound. And it's just a different way to look at two different ways of getting that sound and getting the people in the field, into the stands and hearing.
Lee County has a small role compared to the school board project. Blue, Lee County property, and we're looking to do an interlocal with them to cover aspects and potentially a small boardwalk or observation deck for water access or kayak launch with them. So you can see their point compared to all of the school board's property.
The county, has the county not to donate their property?
Actually just began discussions with them. Actually haven't had any in-person discussions with them just came back from vacation, so here in the next month we're gonna open up that can. So.
I'll just dovetail into that. So as you can see, we have these pairs here of the court sports that are on. All of this is existing and already being used. I don't know that it's area or not, but there's no change to those. Job with them, clean them up, throw some shade sails over top of them, whether or not there's any.
So, Karen Woodson, I know the large ball field, we were talking about having it multi-purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same for the small ball field, is it?
That's open for discussion. So everything here can happen to it. So as it's drawn right now, I don't have any other additional programming on it, but it could certainly be added.
I was just thinking for budgetary sake, if we did the large field first and then later did the small field,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know, because you're still going to have to sod it, you're still going to have to do something small field, but what would that savings possibly be if we put the turf down the road for the small ball field?
In the long run, you'd be spending more money, but in the short term for your budget that you have, could you save a little money now? There's definitely, I don't know the exact number, but it's significantly cheaper.
Back to the turf, about the cost difference between full-on AstroTurf fake or the combination.
I don't know anybody that's putting in AstroTurf these days.
So,
The brand AstroTurf,
so there's two choices really, the natural and then this.
there's natural, and it's called the brand name is called Field Turf. That's the one with the rubber in it. Talking about $2 million for those, so yeah.
Long-term, one versus the other.
I'd like to go talk to Bishop Road, because do you know when they put that in? It has to be
I don't know.
10, 15 years ago, it seems.
They've redone it twice.
They have, completely?
Because of wear and tear,
10 years.
or?
It
10
wasn't put down properly at first, and then wear and tear.
At the Collier County, they opening up their $1 million park off the highway, and it's all multiple feet.
Salt inundation, last hurricane, it killed the whole field, so back, they went with the turf so they don't lose it every time.
Sarasota County Schools started 3 years ago of transferring all of their field space throughout at all their high schools, the fields to this field, and then they're finding the cost differential is significant. It is a 10-year lifespan, but during that period, you're not, especially on a multi-use field here, like you've got where you're trying to use multiple purposes. Florida dryness, the upkeep, the watering, all of it, the cost of it ends up being cutting it. I mean, just and the use and tear. I mean, there's no downtime with regular turf because of the wear and tear. You have to give months of downtime. Usually 2 or 3 months before you can use it for another cycle. On this, you don't have to have that. So if you're trying to use multi-fields, most school districts now have found that this is the better product to do. It is more costly up front. That's why we haven't gone there just yet. We're still evaluating it, but it is something worth evaluating.
What's the drainage on it compared to natural turf?
That's a good question. So the drainage actually goes through it. The water hits it and it is actually encapsulated in chambers underneath.
Are you planning on using that same rubber type stuff in place of the sand in the playground areas? I know I've seen parks in the past that have had replacing the sand with the cut up tires or the ground up tires.
Yeah, we're definitely going to put in a safe material there for it, whether it's the cut up tires or more of this turf or the rubberized mats. There's lots of different options there, and you can work with the school because I know they've got the state has their own requirements for playgrounds, and we'll make sure we definitely.
Then in that trail that's at the top of the screen there behind the ball fields, is that just a walking trail or is that going to be some sort of like health fitness trail? I know there's been discussion about that.
All the above, and the other thing we're going to throw in there too is the disc golf. Right now you have disc golf out there. It's kind of hodgepodge. It's kind of meandering in there. So we'll try and keep it so that it's a fitness trail, one that you can just walk on, one that you can jog on, one that may have intermediate workout stations, and then also have the holes for disc golf.
There's also an important number up there that nobody's discussed yet that I find extremely important, and that's that 300 additional parking spaces. That's what's there now at 54? I mean, there's not a lot there now.
Yeah, let's see. I think the existing, I don't have the existing on there, but it's probably in that sub 100 range. We're getting a total of 300. We're not adding 300.
Right.
It's that includes parking beneath the buildings here. Last meeting with BORCAB, I think we decided to make it ground floor here, so we lost a little bit of parking. We got a little bit of there to make sure we can accommodate that, and the goal is to get enough parking so that you don't have a situation where people can't find a place to park. And so that's definitely part of our goal there, but it also is going to go back to the town and town staff to ensure you're not double booking major events at this baseball tournament. It's not going to happen on the same night as a big show in this.
Chelsea, you mentioned a potential kayak launch at the back there on the back bay. What's going to happen? I don't see anything on there about the existing kayak launch behind the old Tops property.
That was part of the budget discussion and funding the replacement of those. So I don't believe funding has been allocated to replace it when it is time. So that could be merged over to this one. You know, to the waterway, the what's it called? So connect to that. Look at the potential of funding. So that opens up. The only reason the difficult part of that kayak launch behind Tops is that canal is privately owned. So that's a caveat compared to putting it out directly to the bay. So that's where we're looking to work with kayak launch that way. And then with programming and then
Didn't they just build a new one behind Matanzas back in Matanzas Pass Preserve? Isn't there a new kayak launch going back
It's
that
a
way?
landing, and we just redid all the boardwalk back there.
This boardwalk that we're talking about would, I would assume, tie into that somehow?
It would be, well, you would have access on the trail that it would tie into. Let me get quick. This area right here would tie back into that. And then what Chelsea's talking about would be this region. If I can show you the aerial again. Kind of come in off the backside and take the path of least resistance through the mangroves, the shortest possible. Obviously, for health mangroves or not the great specimens, and then as short as possible. That way you're not.
I don't know if I see people dragging their kayaks from the parking lot all the way through the ball fields, all the way to the back part of that property to
Well, it may be more of a programming, another aspect for,
Bay Oaks.
How many kayaks do you have right now? Yeah, we have 14. And the question is, how do we get the kayaks back there? Are you dragging them, or can they be hooked onto a trailer with a golf cart?
Essentially rent them.
So that's the goal.
yeah. I guess we have really the two different ideas, thoughts of plans. Haven't really heard much discussion from one to the other. And I reiterate, council has to approve. But right now, these guys have got some homework they're looking from you all. But we're starting to open up. Yes, Patrick.
I'll make it very clear, on behalf of Little League, we'd like to see both. From our programming standpoint, but also in looking at the other option, I have a hybrid field. I don't think it's practical.
To that point, the original design was more of a soccer field first that got a baseball field embedded into it. I believe there's going to have to be some massaging done to that drawing in order to get a full-size baseball field in there. We did, just a side note, we did have an intermediate design where we had both ball fields. Do you remember that one, right? Both ball fields kind of merged in the outfield, and based on Little League's response there, they didn't really care for having the two outfields in this spot for this time. Things we could do with fencing in order to make it very hard for baseball to get over in between the two fields, but we decided, based on that feedback, to a second baseball field completely separate.
Patrick, could Little League function with field?
Charlie's been doing it way longer than I have. So
My initial reaction is no. I mean, we talked about that, and if you try and stack them on end like they were before, and you just can't play two games at the same time. Yeah. You might be able to run two practices at the same time, but you just can't play two games at the same time. And have some 200-pound 16-year-old mashing one into the middle of the 11-year-old game.
And even from a practice standpoint, we both fields. The little kids on
What's
What do you have for age groups?
Everywhere from 4 to 18. We've had we don't have 18-year-olds every year, but some we do sometimes.
How many teams are you typically fielding across all age groups?
I've been doing this for 30-some years. Typically,
yeah.
I mean, typically over 30 years, or how many this year?
Let's do a 5-year average, not including COVID.
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about. We'll get 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 or 10, depending on, again, whether we get the 18-year-olds interested. Some of them get distracted when they get to be that age,
And I coach for Babe Ruth out at Alva, and we have 2 fields, similar to what we're trying to show here.
Right.
And it becomes a bear. I mean, you have 2 practices a night. on 2 different fields, so it's 4 teams, and you alternate, so we can get 8 teams. Then you still have the old kids, like, they start their practice at 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
And that's not really
Right.
practical.
But I definitely see that, and then, you know, game days are, you know, it's interesting. You go out to like North Fort Myers where they have 4 or 8 fields, and it's definitely play. Yeah, it's definitely a scheduling nightmare.
And we know we're dealing with a restricted space there, and we understand that, and I mean, we have to have joint use fields, clearly. But it's hard for me to imagine being able to play, you know, of a Saturday morning if we have a ball game, then a minor game, a major game, senior or junior, whichever we're playing.
Saturdays get long.
Yes.
Well, the Little League field was built in 57. In 59, along came a Beach Babe Ruth League team on it, and we had to use the Little League field, and it was not Babe Ruth regulation. We played 7 games there anyway with town teams. So I don't see any way that you'd want to do away with one of the fields. It may be well that we get, time in the future, the island gets a Legion team, Babe Ruth League team, want that field. And there's people who use it for softball. But I don't see the need to do one field. I don't know why you'd want to.
Lee County, for sports development, don't they run shy of fields every now and then when they have the perfect game and stuff like that going on in Lee County?
Times, yeah.
Because maybe, you know, it might be a benefit to have the 2 fields, so when Lee County is filling up, now we have 2 fields available as well that could fit into the Lee County sports arena.
Yes.
Valuable for us.
I think a nice facility like this would be really cool for the tournament here. Raw, it's not in season usually. You can really get a good.
Also from a multi-use field and soccer fields, I coach soccer on behalf of the soccer league, but
And if you did go with artificial turf, this wouldn't be clay, so you'd be much easier.
So in talking about these 2 fields, I think the only layout that makes sense is the one just rendition with the fields next to each other, not bumping up to each other. Means that the gymnasium would go, which I don't see a problem with that. The gymnasium is old, it has issues, and all of anything that's going on in the gymnasium is going to be covered by the 2 new buildings up front and segmenting them out into the noisy building, if you will, and the quiet building, if you will. So I don't know, I think this layout here is probably.
Okay, so what we lose from moving, it's like an 18 or 19,000 square foot building. We're then putting into a 12,000 square foot building here that will also include facilities, classes, things like that. So really what we found is you have 2 side-by-side basketball courts in the building. This can only handle 1. So we're losing a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that this building can't grow this way. A second one in there. There are possibilities.
And I guess that gets back to the programming and that type of thing with the kids and after-school programs and that type of thing of how, you know, how important are the 2 basketball courts versus how important are the 2 baseball fields?
Someone's going to end up unhappy, I think.
Go back to the other one, you'll notice that these buildings don't change their scheme. erased 18,000 square foot of program space, basketball courts, fitness centers, weight rooms, meeting rooms, locker rooms, showers. Not growing this at all. So there's gonna be, like, when you say it's $1.5 million to take that out and put a turf field in, it's gonna magically grow basketball courts. Yeah, it couldn't fit, it's constrained, you know, there's 12,000 square feet. That become 3-story. What happened to yoga in the passive use space? That's still happening? Is that an extra floor? Or does that footprint grow significantly? And also think that, you know, we were counting on parking underneath these buildings. These are kind of elevated basketball courts. Produces a different price point, and, you know. So there's other aspects of it, of replacing that program on that building.
Program. Children are a bit hot, they need sunscreen, taking that building in air. I played in high school and college, and nobody wants to play outside with the sun. So if we're really trying to accommodate kids actually playing, I think video games. So we have an open air. I have to beg them to get out on because that, like, I've seen them during summer. That's where they hang out. Where will they go in the summer? Asking, would they go into this new?
Yes. I think that's the goal. So that programming, whatever was in the old rec building, now gets dispersed into these two buildings.
Accommodate the amount.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes. It's hard to visualize, so I don't really know. I just want to make sure. We want to encourage our kids to exercise. That'll do it, then that. In that second building that we were talking about, with the basketball, what we called the athletic center.
Athletic center, yep.
Yeah, right there. We're talking about the height that is needed for the basketball. So, I mean, that's already in there. That's been planned. That was in our original talk.
Talked about it last
Yes.
time and the time before that, yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
definitely a vertical aspect. It's 2 stories tall.
Virtually all of the programming that currently exists at Bay Oaks will continue in one of these facilities, with the idea that there'll be future programming that we currently can't provide that will now be provided, and we've allowed for that. So it's a multi-use space for all of the 3 buildings plus the fields.
Definitely.
Brings me to my question. I'd like to hear from the folks here on how they might feel, what they might think about this idea of, instead of referring to the new place as a recreation center, that it's called a community center.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I'd just like to hear what you folks think about that.
From the point of reducing overall space, I think there's a public perception to sell this also. People tend to be risk averse. Would rather protect the downside and go for something new. So you have to explain to people that you're going to lose 1 basketball court, and now we already have an existing building that we're going to tear down, and we're going to have less space. Understood, state of the art, brand new. But I think if there is any possibility to at least, and it's a budget issue, but get that other court in, get an equivalent square footage. I know that we can't, with the different leagues, with soccer and everything, we can't find enough storage space. We have storage space. Now we're going to lose square footage, and I'm thinking, okay, yes, maybe it can be designed better. It's hard for me to really see where that, you know, what we're losing. I think that the rec space and the issue of a community versus rec, I think the idea that this is a sports facility and recreational in nature, for a lot of people, and especially people with children, you want to maintain that.
Well, but this isn't just a place for children. We need to keep in mind what we're trying to do here, this advisory committee is make this a place for the whole community. Just the kids, or, you know, we're going to have a community building. It's one of the 3 buildings. And it's going to be a gathering place. We want a gathering place, the community. Bringing this community on this island together. And that's an important step, what's going on here. We have within the community center gymnasium and ball fields. But in totality, you have I'm asking for your opinions, but this was the thought among some of us on the board. But this is more than just a ball field or a gym. That this is a place community can come and do a whole host of things. There's going to be a good number of meeting rooms. Hopefully, some of the organizations on the island will meet there. There's going to be all kinds of programs designed not necessarily for the kids, although there will be plenty of those, but for adults of all ages also. And so you might want to consider what this is really going to be. Much more than a gym, which is all you had, which is all that's been here. You've had a gymnasium, ball fields. This new plan expands on that. So I was just curious as to how you folks might feel about the concept of moving from just a recreation center to a community center.
I think that discussion can happen at a later date once we get.
I don't know. We've got people here. I mean, this is the stakeholders. I'd just like to know how they feel about it. It should be part of the discussion.
Go ahead.
Denise Monahan, Friends of Bay Oaks. There is a lot to love about all these concepts. I just have to say, a lot of work and thought has gone into it for the community and the rec side, and there is a lot to love about it. I do have a giant concern about where did this $5 million come from? Come up with the idea and then say, this is what we think it'll cost, or did we say, this is everything we want, but you can only spend $5 million? I mean, a 12,000 square foot building, if you do it at $400 a square foot, there's your $5 million. I mean, you're not going to have money for 2 buildings or a boardwalk. I mean, where did this $5 million come from?
So I didn't set the budget for that, but.
But I'm sure it was, where?
This is the walking around number that the town has decided that they can focus on this one.
I don't think we're dealing in reality with these ideas as much as I love them. Just don't think there's a basis for reality to do 2 buildings and boardwalk and ADA compliance and covered parking. I mean, there's a lot of great things.
May I speak to that? I know that you're absolutely right. It's a pie in the sky idea, very conceptual. The Bay Oaks Advisory Board has been working on this for about 1.5 years, 2 years.
At least.
And we came up originally with this idea that what we currently have simply does not work. And so the town council has recognized that there was a need for improvement. Whatever extent that was going to happen was still up in the air, and it still is up in the air. But during last year's budget meetings, there was an increase in the millage, if you remember, where we went from .87 to .95, with the idea that there were capital improvement projects, this being one, Times Square being the other, I believe Bayside Park being the third, where these three CIP projects would be funded through reserves as a result of that increase in millage. And what I understand now with council is that if we look at doing funding from a loan going forward as part of a 30-year, because this is basically a legacy project, correct? This is not just for us, today. This is for the next 30, 40 years. So if you look at how that money can be expended now and paid for over a period of time, it has a great deal of merit. So I think the consensus among us as Bay Oaks members and the town council is to what extent we currently can make that work within a $5 million budget. And, looking at all three CIP projects going forward. Again, this has not been presented to council, so we really don't quite know what the response is going to be, but that's why you all are here today, to kind of get some feedback as to what you think should include. I mean, I think the consensus from what I'm hearing is that virtually everybody is on board with the idea that, yes, Bay Oaks has not worked well, and it needs to be improved, it needs to be updated, it really needs to be considered in terms of highest and best use for the property that we have, and then look at what the budget will allow. And that's kind of where we are right now, and your input is so incredibly vital because it really does instruct us going forward. May I ask a question of the two guys from Lee County? Because Chelsea touched on that very slightly with regard to the two portions of property that are part of this concept plan. And I understand that we were maybe looking for an interlocal agreement with the county. Can the two of you speak to that, please?
Well, Paul, the two blue sections in the middle,
Right.
Yes.
the county is willing to work with the town on transferring the ownership of those. The other one, we have historic cottages on, and it's also our parking lot for Matanzas Pass Preserve.
Right.
We would maybe look at potential
Thank you.
partnership or interlocal agreement for that. But we would not be giving up ownership of that.
I'm so happy to hear you say that.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I mean,
Pam, too,
I
thank you.
I think what's so wonderful is that, if the school board's on board and if the county's on board and our town is on board, we all together can actually make this happen. But we need that piece of that pie for
Yeah,
certain.
and if you look at those pieces, it doesn't make sense for the county to retain ownership any longer, and it should have transferred over when the town was reformed.
Incorporated.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
That
Thank you,
is
Jessica.
excellent news.
Yes.
Since we have you talking, do you see any, you obviously experience parks quite a bit. Do you see any deficiencies, if there are any, in any of these plans as far as future growth or potential changing in needs 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now?
Well, it's an island, so you've got what you got. What the needs are now may not be the needs 30 years from now. And what I'm finding is a lot of the older parks we're having to repurpose. For example, converting a tennis court into pickleball courts, or we're going to redo the Lynn Hall restrooms. People aren't really using the changing rooms like they used to anymore. So why not convert those to stalls for toilets and things like that? So, I remember going out to Bay Oaks as a kid and going to summer camp and doing things like that out here. I think you need to look at what really changed over the course of the years. Is it just buildings were let go and kind of didn't get the necessary maintenance projects that they should have? But $5.5 million, in my opinion, the layout that you've got and spruce everything up that you've got, if you've only got 5.5 million. My opinion, though.
Are you Mr. Lavender?
Yes, I am, Lee.
Okay. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you. His father put the lights in the Little League ball field. He was Parks and Rec director for the county.
Father also
Thank you
moved
very
your
much.
cottages over there, too. Yeah.
Very cool.
Mr. Lavender, I have a question. My understanding that the county pays for all or part of the lighting at the Sanibel fields by their rec center. Is that true?
That's an interlocal agreement with three parties, the city of Sanibel, the school district, and the county.
Would the county be, would you be willing?
We each pay a third, as a third, and it's for CIP projects at the recreation center.
Well, that town takes a look at that. Willing to do that out here?
And that is a decision that was made by the Board of County
I
Commissioners.
understand that.
A few of whom are in the business right now of trying to make people like them. Point that out to you. Not only that, but there are folks in the same position for the school board.
There is a difference, when you talk about Sanibel School to ours, there is a difference, though. That's a middle school, that's a K-8, so that includes middle school, and so there's a standard and requirement for them to have covered field space. We, at the elementary level, that's not a requirement. So it's a nice to have for us, but honestly, as far as we're concerned, the only thing that's a requirement for us that we would maintain is a playground.
I understand that.
And given that we are, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest, our capital budget has lost millions of dollars in the last 3 months. So, what was that?
We're in lots of trouble.
We are, and I mean, we have, so our ability to go from, we have to take care of our needs, and needs first. The nice to haves are wonderful to contribute to, and in this location, what our need is to have a playground. Everything else is a nice to have. And right now, given the amount of money that we have lost from COVID, just nice to haves are what we have to, nice to haves are going to be the first to get cut.
Obviously, if all those things, the Oaks, the kids. I hear you say that Bay Oaks doesn't work, or it's not. I don't really know exactly. Like the parking doesn't work, or people don't like the facility, that it just doesn't work anymore. Somebody just tell me like what, because as far as our children are concerned, I mean, they have their fields and go in the gym and they. What is it like that doesn't work from a different, being on the other side? I just don't see it doesn't work.
I'll take that if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yes.
So some of the people know here, every year for a couple weeks, I'll drive Uber to talk to people that are coming to visit the island,
Right.
to see what they say. And it was amazing to me how nobody knew that place was there that didn't live here.
I don't know it's there.
If you know it's there, you use it.
Right.
I actually sent a friend of mine who's had a home here since 2004, didn't even really know it was there. He didn't know that there was a facility that he could go use and work out, as opposed to driving off the island. He went there on 2 different occasions, couldn't find where he was supposed to go work out. So I think when you say not working, physically, could it work? Sure. And maybe repurposing what's there, it could be something to look at. But it's the fact that people don't know it's there. So the utilization of it is not being used to its fullest potential. Some people.
Replacing it for $5 million. And signage, and everyone will know it's there. But what's there right now doesn't work. I mean, I understand that I get that part, but that's not $5 million worth to get people.
I'll take my hat off as the chamber president and put it on as someone who worked my first 6 years in senior programming, the Tampa Recreation Department. Mm-hmm. Our senior programming on this island stinks. It's sorely, sorely needed. We have nowhere for those folks to go, nowhere that they can gather, nowhere that they feel is their home that belongs to them, where they can have solid programming. We have an aging population on this island who has healthcare issues. where we have no daycare for them, we have no social interaction abilities, and we don't have a lot of space on this island where you could house those things. You need a pool where they can go and they can do water aerobics. You need, gentle workout rooms. You need places where they can go and learn meditation, or where they can have social time, or have dances, or whatever those things may be. That was the first part of my career, and that's hugely lacking. This plan would go a long way toward fulfilling those folks for our seniors. And I'd like to remind everybody, those seniors are a big part of our tax base. Their tax dollars are going to help pay for this. I love our kiddos, just like everybody else, and I think our kids' programs can be enhanced well. And I think we can draw folks in from the county, different sports development opportunities. No place for lecture series. We have no place for speakers to come. Yes, we have the library. It's beautiful. They've got some rooms there. But there's opportunity here to have all types of lecture series and classes, and art studios, and outdoor things.
Culinary center.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So there's so many things that could be done with this. I think an investment, personally, as a taxpayer on the island, as somebody who owns a business on the island, as somebody who's seen as leading the community on the island, I think an investment in our future in a plan like this, I think $5 million is too little. I think we find more money. I think toward that. That's what I personally feel, and I'm happy to put in my hard-earned dollars toward that, because I think we need our future. We want to be a class town. We want to lead in the community as a town that's up and coming and that has all the best on this beautiful barrier island. We need to invest. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Jackie.
Well said, Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And to add to that, a lot of people that I've talked to, they're looking, visitors that come to town, they're looking for something for their kids to do. Their kids don't always just want to go to the beach.
That's right.
Would definitely provide them, and many of them don't even know the pool exists. So, I mean, this would give them quite a space to be able to get out, and it would, maybe it'll bring more families in than what we're getting now. That they'll have more options for their children to do things than just sit at the beach.
And then the funds and the fees from those programs that our tourists or our guests are putting their children into can also go help, the programs that are there. There's a lot of opportunity here. I don't want to see you guys lose ground on this. You
Not to chase this rabbit too far down the hole, but do we currently budget for a senior program staffer?
Yes.
You do? Hey, I know one time we weren't. And there's been some talk about people don't know Bay Oaks is there. Talk a little bit about the marketing function. What are we doing to make people know that Bay Oaks is there?
Hi, Dan, I'll help. Our town council has recently to put funding in the budget for our PIO. I know that Allison and her staff are diligently working on Facebook. I see the posts. And I know Bay Oaks just recently did a new strategic plan, I believe. Is that true? That you all did a strategic plan that you adopted? Mm-hmm. So steps are being taken, right direction, and come behind this project and planning for the future marketing with our PIO and hope.
If I can add to that too, that was one of the primary reasons we created Friends of Bay Oaks, was to try to get the public involved, the people of this center, to be proactive in spreading the word about it. And sadly, that my committee is on beyond life support. We need volunteers, we need help so that we can assist in those efforts of spreading the word. As we make efforts in going forward with this, I can't reiterate enough, reemphasize what Dan said, and we have got to make sure our entrance helps and says that we're there. And that's a small way. I mean, that's not a big ticket item, but it needs to be done well. It really needs to be done well. We're going to have 3 entrances there on Estero Boulevard. How are we going to make that? How are we going to use those 3 spaces through 3 entrances, make it look attractive? And I don't know. That's going to be a challenge, but think about that, we have, I understand the fire station to library, they're kind of in between there, and how, what's the big picture to get Bay Oaks on Estero Boulevard, using all those access?
Patrick Vaness, I'd like to echo what Jackie was saying. I think that the budget's important because, look, I'm wearing multiple hats as a parent of young children that go to the elementary school, coaching soccer, coaching Little League, and also having my kids go to summer camp at Bay Oaks. And I don't want to advocate for rec uses over community are needed. But obviously, if I wear my hats in the groups that I represent today, my message is let's not reduce the rec side, bring in the community side. Let's try to find a way to get both. Also, from the standpoint of the question that was asked about not functioning well, my personal experience, and I was on the island way before I had kids. I had kids later in life. And before I had children, I didn't use Bay Oaks a whole lot. As soon as I had children, I could tell you that we're there every week, several times a week. From a parent standpoint, it functions well. It could be improved for sure. But I think some of it is functionality, some of it is PR, so there's broader issues here.
Agreed. Well said.
Well, we have a really wonderful director now. One of the problems, and in the past, turnovers in directors, probably more often than would have liked, but we have a really, really good director now. And I think when this comes to fruition, you're gonna really see it with programming, with the bringing the people in, which is what this is all about. We have a really, probably for the first time, a really good director sitting over here. I don't know Allison, this is Allison.
Yes.
And so I think that problem has already been solved. Hopefully now we need to get on with what we've been working on for the last 2 years and see that the town gets on with it.
Those closing comments, Lee.
Yes.
I know we're wrapping this up. Thank you all for coming, for your input. It took us a little while to open up, but good input and comments. I'll leave my card up here. If you have any questions, yes, there is what's the FNB. Okay, so there's an email out that I know because of this pandemic, a lot of people are uncomfortable coming in person. It's bayoaks@fmbgov.com. If you have friends, family that may have comments, ideas, thoughts, I know it was posted on Facebook. Send us an email. This is we're working towards 30% design. We've got momentum here from everyone in this room. Working with the school board, with the county. There's a lot of moving pieces still. So, help us put this puzzle together. Give us comments. Like I said, either good or bad. We'll take both. Hopefully, we'll be back here in this room come September or October with that 30%, and go from there. So thank you all.
I got just one
This
quick question for
advisory board,
Paul.
by the way, has a meeting as part of August 4th. And of course, you're all welcome. That's a public meeting, and we'll be discussing more of this. We'll be discussing some names, so.
Just a question for you, Paul, just so it's clear and on the record. Which of these two are you working off of for your 30% design? The one with the building, without the building, or both?
I was kind of hoping we would be able to land on something following this meeting. Based on what I'm hearing, I think that the town still needs to figure out the direction they want us to. There's benefits to both. There's budget constraints. I think I'm hearing what Little League is saying, and sports and two ball fields are important to them, and I'm also hearing budget constraints are there, and we need to start looking at it, and is that $1 million better spent somewhere else? So, I would ask town to tell me which direction to
It would
go.
be my hope that we could come to a consensus before we leave this room. So that you have clear direction, the public has clear direction, they can see exactly what's going on. And there's not going to be issues later of, well, I didn't know anything about it. So my hope is before everybody leaves, if you could come to a conclusion as to giving Paul some direction as to keep the building or not keep the building, so he can get working on what he needs to work on, and people can then put their input to this FMB Gov email based on a decision that's made today with or without the building.
I have a question. So the money that's been allocated to projects,
Yeah, Bayside.
Bayside Park. Right now, Bayside Park's on hold, and there's a lot of discussion about what that should really look like. An opportunity to move the funds from Bayside Park over to this plan, because the two things really benefit the whole community. Or this one, I feel, one, I'm square right behind it because it's time to get all of the utilities and everything. Those are critical, both in different ways, but both critical. Is that an opportunity? And I'm not saying that we don't need to do something down, but
I can tell you that the concepts of all three of those projects were taken to council. There is no money allocated until the loan goes through. So really that acquiring that loan has to go through council. There's still opportunities for them to change the allocation of that funding. But as a staff perspective, we have prepared and it's been presented for the three projects. There's the opportunity.
so I guess it's up to council to decide if they want to move some money around a little bit. And
But it's
maybe have a
important to know
stage-
what you're looking at.
Right, to have stage one, stage two with that funding. Credit that, this is,
As an advisory committee, we did, Dan, make a motion to demolish the building and put the two ball fields in. That's what we recommended.
Yeah, I remember, I just wanted to make sure everybody
Yeah.
could give Paul some direction.
last one.
So Dan, can't you guys work with the, your budget with facilities or, so let's say you tear down existing one, but you want to put two basketball courts in the building with that bigger budget, and obviously as you maybe our friends from League, maybe you can adjust accordingly with.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at is give Paul some direction as to what we like to see, and then we can adjust it from there if a budget can't be changed or reallocated or however we need to make things work to get this done. But you have to have a starting point. And BORCAB is, as Barbara has said, they made a motion about going forth with tearing down the building. So that's the direction I think that everybody wants to go. I think that would maybe help. I don't want to speak for Paul, but I think that might give you some direction. It might ease some emails that I may or may not get about what we're doing and what we're not doing. So that's kind of where I'm coming at it from.
I know we're trying to wrap it up, but I did want to put out there, rather than doing two buildings, it's so much more expensive to do two separate standalone buildings. Get rid of our existing building. Why wouldn't we do one larger building and then divide it up? I know there was the talk about you don't want people coming through working out with people coming in for a meeting, but it would be so much more cost effective to do one building rather than two.
You're not wrong, and that's been discussed, again, not in the dark, and that's good feedback. I can tell you, a curved building is going to be more expensive than a rectangular building, and the more outs and alcoves you add to a building, the more expensive it gets. Those are all trade-offs, so we can definitely look at combining those into one larger space. Common exterior wall that gets deleted. There's some savings there. To answer Patrick's question, are both basketball courts utilized consistently? Or would it be a detriment to the facility if you got rid of one of them?
Basketball courts are such as football is, or we have a total of 8 courts. Require the 2
Are all 8 used?
during season.
So there's something maybe we can do and make it an oversized basketball court, or we can squeeze
So we can
in
fit the 8
8 pickleball courts. And you may end up with 1 regulation size basketball court and maybe 2 youth sized basketball courts running perpendicular. So there's some things we can do there without like just adding a whole other basketball court if that's not getting used. And that kind of goes back to your question earlier to Jesse. What is he seeing that we can try to look into a crystal ball and see how this is going to not get used in the future and what we might need to repurpose? No one's going to know that. But everything that we were trying to do inside of both of these buildings, and even the court sports and the outer parts of that park are meant to be as flexible as possible. No one knows what the next Zumba is going to be or the next pickleball is going to be. Those are going to pop up organically and they're going to become popular. And the things that we're trying to do right now is just make it as flexible and user-friendly as possible. So when those things pop up and things are no longer used, we're not just pigeonholed into we have to do pickleball here, because pickleball is going to be a fad. It's going to go away eventually someday, and it's going to get replaced by badminton or something like that. So there's other options there, and that's, I think that kind of will ease maybe the question that you had there of trying to plan for the 30-year plan and not knowing what those popular sports might be.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to
And
get
your
at.
community is going to change over 30 years too. Are you going to get younger or older? I have no idea. I couldn't guess on that.
Well, I can tell you, I'll probably use it from the pickleball to the cribbage in the rest of my lifetime.
So, I guess to get direction, want me to take a vote? What do you, can we get a?
I've been waiting to give everybody, because I didn't want to cut off the wonderful ideas that everyone's had today. But a couple of things have come up. So it's our intention to update the council at their first meetings in August as to the sort of decision points that Paul and his team will be facing. So to answer the question about how does Paul get direction from the council? Recommendations of the committee is on record, and of course will be shared with the council, and I'm sure some of you will be there to hear your opinions in person. As to the dollar amount was set based on basically what we currently have available. So the amount we currently have available can be increased. The idea of the 3 projects is that, whether you're a Bay Oaks fan or you're a Times Square fan or a Bayside Park fan, everyone would have sort of something in the mix. And hopefully we would be touching all of the communities. So if you happen to be someone who doesn't go to Bay Oaks, and even with these wonderfully planned improvements, still won't be going to Bay Oaks, might be a Bayside Park, or you might be a Times Square. So since everyone's paying for it, to try to create as many opportunities for different segments of population to utilize the facility. We have always talked about phasing. From day one, we've talked about phasing because we knew that perhaps trying to incorporate all the ideas would be a stretch. And the last thing I want to say is that really the best way to do this is for us to get biddable plans, get bids, and then know what happens if we delete X or add Y. When the contractors examine it, the scale of doing X versus Y will have real dollars from a contractor's perspective of what it costs to make that change. Right now, we're just sort of speculating. It's an educated guess or whatever, but we really don't know. So it'll be important how we construct the bid to provide for those alternatives. And it probably won't be till the contract's awarded till those final decisions have been made. Because maybe, wow, we got such a great deal on the next building, let's try to find the money to add it in, or it's so expensive, maybe we can't add it in. So, glad you all came today. I appreciate you coming out, particularly in these times. Glad all of you had a lot of good input. I think I've heard pretty much support from everybody except from Jesse. He just wants. It's okay. I'm going to tease you, Jesse.
I think Jesse wants us to have more money.
Yeah, well, so do I. So do I. But I think as Councilman was starting to say, if we get bids in and we're short money, then you have something tangible to go out to the public and say, hey, if we want that, we're going to have to increase taxes to get that, and are you all with us, type of thing. Right now, it's a little bit harder ask. But I think we're progressing. We're on the right track. I think one of the things we need to do is pretty much call an end to the planning part once we have this meeting with the council. Get direction, get plans, and get a bid, because then we'll really know what we're talking about. We'll work real hard with the school board, and thank you, ladies, for being here, and thank you, Jessica. And we'll work with both the school board and the county, try to resolve these land deals in the next 30, 60 days if we can. Come October, we'll really know what we're doing, and we'll really be in decision-making mode. So, if someone has a specific question for me,
Are you saying that we're looking at taking both plans to council and saying, one, what do you like?
If we get a brilliant idea at 2 o'clock in the morning tonight, we're going to bring that idea also to council. We're going to say, okay, here are the decision points. Here's our recommendation. Our recommendation, I can tell you right now, is going to be to advocate for the bigger project from terms of doing the plans and bid alternatives. So if we can't afford certain things, we could take certain elements out or have a cheaper alternative.
Look at monetizing. Extra fees. I think we.
Well, one of the things I always say, and Jackie always teases me about this with Thunder, if it's a great idea, it's a great idea with your money, meaning my money and your money. Shouldn't be doing it just because we can get a grant or whatever. So, yeah, I think if we're close, you're not going to make up $5 million shortfall with fees, adjusting fees. But I would venture to say that our costs for using our gym shouldn't be half of what the cost of going to a private gym is. It should be a little cheaper, but not that much cheaper. So we'll need to look at that when we get to that point in time. But for now, I think we need to try to really get this to a phase where we're actually doing design. I think there's been my recollection, Barbara, was that this started with, well, what do we do with the front parcel? And then it was like, well, you could have a beautiful front door, but the rest of the house is a piece of junk, people are going to figure that out pretty quick. So it evolved to looking at the entire parcel, and here we are now today. But I think we have a great opportunity to try to get something done. The interest rates are reasonably low for all the wrong reasons, but I guess they are. We'll take advantage of that, and we'll get as much done as we can. And hopefully the same support will be here for anything that gets left out. Come back and put together some more money to do that in a second phase if necessary. Everybody else, there's no questions.
Thank you, Roger. Really appreciate everybody being here today. I think that it was an eye-opener on a couple different things. And special thanks to the school board and the county parks to be able to join us. We've talked about you. All very good things that were said, of course. But it's nice to get the people here to have that input, because I didn't think that we had any choice but to have the two fields. And then today, all of a sudden, we down to one field. I mean, things like this that had not come up before. We think that we've covered our bases pretty well. We've certainly reviewed everything numerous times. And so to be able to have all of you come to us and to be able to give us that input, it's been an eye-opener. And really appreciate every single one of you for coming in and spending your time with us this beautiful afternoon. So appreciate it. Is there anything that, we do have a meeting, August 4th at 9 o'clock, our regular BORCAB meeting, and you are all welcome to attend that. And it's here in council chambers, and we do have masks. Sometimes it's hard to talk for a length of time with those masks on, so appreciate what everybody is having to go through. Is there anything that any of our members would like to bring up at this time? Anything?
I just want to ask, when is the first town council meeting in August? Is it August 3rd or August 10th?
August 3rd, yes.
August 3rd is the first Monday.
Mm-hmm.
August 3rd, okay.
We're the first Tuesday.
August 4th, we're not finished yet. I want to make that clear. There's some more issues we're going to be talking about on August 4th at 9 a.m. here. We're going to be looking at recommendations for names, both the center and naming some buildings, possibly historic names, and some other things. And I would love to see some of you stakeholders come to that meeting and hear from you on those issues. Because those are, we're not finished yet, and there's still a few important things left for us to do. So please come if you can.
Any other comments? Anybody like to say anything to us at the end? Okay. I would move that we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Barbara
Okay.
Hill.
We're adjourned at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty.
So I have a question, so, I mean, I'm happy to out if you have a